Alright guys, Jay at Broader Performance. You know, if you watch my videos, you'll hear me say I don't do these old Cruise O Matics anymore. Well, here I am doing one. This is I'm going to show you why I don't want to do these anymore. You know, the older oils, you know, this was probably before Type F. I don't know what was in this, or just a really old version of Type F, but it, if you look at it, I mean, look at how sludgy this thing is, you know, and it just has this caked up varnish. And you look over here, and this has been in the washer, and you see all that varnish in there that just, it doesn't come off. So what I'm getting at here is, this is why one of the reasons I steer people away from Type F. And this might even, like I said, not even be Type F. It might be something else. I think there was a Type, I can't remember, a Type A or something back in the 50s or early 60s or something. I'm not sure. Maybe one of you old timers can kind of chime in the comments and help me out there, but I just can't remember anymore. But I send people to Dex 3 because it generally doesn't turn into varnish like this. Not saying it can't, but generally not this bad. So anyways, I'm doing this because it's a repeat customer, good people, trying to help them out. They built their own and put it in the car, and I guess, I don't know, when it shifted, it locked up and completely locked up the tires or something. Something really bad happened to the one that they built, so I'm not sure. This is not the unit that had locked up. I think, if I understood, they gave me a lot of information, so I could have some of this wrong, but I believe this was the unit that was originally in the car, but they built a different one for some reason. I can't remember why. So anyways, the plan is for me to build this one, and if I need the other one for parts, steal parts out of that. So that's what I'm going to do there. And I know the other one, it was you know, the earlier models, I think in 1959, if I'm not mistaken. I used to know these things and I've forgotten. But the very early ones did not have the vacuum modulator. This one does have the vacuum modulator. The unit that they built, somebody had taken the vacuum modulator out and just plugged the hole. But it was a newer one that should have had the vacuum modulator. And I'm going to see if I can maybe spray paint this and reuse it. You know, maybe they won't notice. Yeah, that's that'd be, thank God they make those new, you know. But anyways, so you know, I forget everything they told me. This job's kind of been here for a month or so before I finally got to around to looking at it, and they're starting to be in a hurry for it, of course. And I'm going to say this. You know, with all the varnish and everything in this, and it doesn't come off in the washer, what I'm going to have to do, I've got this ultrasonic cleaner, and this stuff's just going to be in the ultrasonic cleaner for a long time. These parts will probably be in here for a couple of days. You know, the ultrasonic cleaner works okay, but it's a slow process for stuff like this. It'll be in here. You know, these things will be in there an hour or two each piece or whatever. And I find that if you put too much in it at once, it loses its intensity. So something that probably will work pretty well on this is lacquer thinner. I try not to use stuff like that anymore. You know, it's flammable if the parts bang together and you make a spark or something, or stuff's just nasty, you know. Anybody, I'm sure a lot of you guys have worked with lacquer thinner. That will take this stuff off pretty good, I believe, but I'm just going to try to ultrasonic it, be a little bit more modern and environmentally friendly, but honestly, I don't know. I might get impatient and go out and get a gallon or two of lacquer thinner. We'll see how it goes. So this unit here, you know what's interesting, it's got a bearing in it, but the cage is actually plastic. Something that old. And one of the needles just fell out of here. So this just looks like an industrial bearing, and I really don't work in these much anymore, and it's kind of one of those deals I've forgotten more about them than I remember at this point, but I think I can get this bearing new. So I'm gonna look into doing that. If not, I'll see if the other unit has it. The other thing I know I've done too when these were bad, I've retrofitted it to a more modern bearing, and I can't remember which one. I am terrible about taking notes. I always think that I'm just going to remember. And when I used to do these all the time, I did remember, but I've been away from them for about 10 years. I've done a couple here and there in the last 10 years, but I don't remember all this stuff anymore. I got to be honest. So this has got the old brass clutches, and some guys really have a big heart on for those. I don't, but this pack's pretty burnt up, and this pressure plate, I don't know if you can see that, it's got a really big ridge worn into it. So this will have to be either replaced, or I don't know, that's pretty deep. Probably a 1/16 of an inch deep, I don't even know. But I may either repair it, you know, I'll have to resurface this, or I'll have to tear the other unit down that they gave me and steal that plate out of there. So I was hoping not to have to do a complete tear down on the second unit. I know I have to take the shift linkage from the other one, but I was hoping not to have to gut the whole thing. But we'll see. I may have to do that. This one needs bands, which I have on the shelf, and we'll swap these out. The other unit, I'm guessing, has good bands. I don't know. I know they rebuilt it. They're the kind of people that are mechanically inclined, and I'm sure did a good job. But for some reason, it locked up on them. And, you know, that's another thing. I would say when you have a transmission you first install, and it's not a bad idea to run it on stands. Much better if it locks up when it's on stands or the lift or something than when you're driving. These things can happen. Kind of scary, but it can happen to anybody. I'd kind of like to tear into that and learn why it did that, but you know, I'm not that curious, and certainly I don't want to charge the customer for that time unless sometimes customers say, look, I put a lot of time and money into building this. I'm willing to pay. I want to know what the hell I did wrong. Sometimes customers say that to me. They did not tell me that, so I'm not going to do that. They just want a unit that works and move on with life. Transmissions are not their aspiration in life, I don't think. Which is, you know, probably pretty smart. You know, this stuff can be very humbling, to say the least. So, all right, what's the point in this video? I'm trying to figure that out myself here, but I just want to kind of show you some of the things that you'll run into with this unit. So, like I said, this plastic cage here, I'm going to see if I can get this brand new in an industrial bearing. Get this stuff in the ultrasonic cleaner start doing that and seeing how that goes. So what I'm going to do, I don't have the ability to splice video together yet. I need to work on that, but what I can do is I'm going to put you guys on pause for a while if this thing doesn't time out, and I'm going to try to do some cleaning on it, let you know how that's going and what's working, and I'm going to look into that bearing, and I might take a quick cut on this plate and see if it's worth salvaging. Sometimes they look worse than they are, you know. So we'll do that, and I will get back with you guys. In my time, it'll probably be a few hours at least. For you, it'll just be a blink of an eye. Kind of like you're God or something. Alright guys, hang on, I'll be back. Hopefully I won't forget about you. Alright guys, I made it back here. Alright. So, I'll show you what I'm talking about here. This stuff's been... This is, you know, hot soapy water basically. This is kind of what everybody's using these days. It's been in here for about 20 minutes, half hour or something, and you know, it looks better, but honestly did better than I expected. But we're still going to need some ultrasonic time on this stuff, especially when we get into that valve body and things like that. But it's starting to come along, so that's good news there. The other thing, you know, these old seals and stuff, I got to get these out. They're just petrified. I mean, they're hard as a rock. You basically got to just take I just take like a sharp pick and just, you know, give them a whack, and they'll just bust off, you know, break apart. This is our pressure plate for the direct. That was all messed up, and I fixed that. I had to take about 40 thousandths off of it, which is kind of a lot, but it's okay. What I'm going to be able to do, most likely, is I'm going to put a steel over this to make up that clearance and, you know, all that sort of thing. So, and give it a little bit more rigidity, because we did take some, and you know, took a fair amount of meat off of it, so it thins it, removes some of its integrity by backing it up with a steel. It's not as good as the solid piece, but it'll help restore it enough. So that's good. That's going to be fine. I'm just trying to avoid doing a complete teardown on that other one. And there's no telling what I'm going to find in that other one either. You know, there's no guarantee that that plate's going to be any good. So that's repaired. I'm happy with that. That went well. And this stuff here, a lot of time in the ultrasonic it's probably going to be. Came out better than I thought. Now this is the ultrasonic. I don't know if this thing is interfering with the camera. Hang on, let me shut it off, but I know phones and things it messes with. But yeah, you know, that stuff's starting to come off. It's been in here about a half hour, so maybe another half hour or so it'll be looking pretty good. There's some thick stuff there I'll scrape, but so that's coming along, because that's hard to get inside there, you know, and get all the way down in there. But it's starting to come out. This is just, you know, I don't have to stand here and wait for it. It's just kind of a passive process. So these parts will probably be running a couple of days in here, like I told you. So I don't, again, I don't have to tear into that other unit too much, but I'm going to throw that up on the bench here real quick to kind of steal what I need from it. I've got to steal the rear servo out of it, because the rear servo was taken out of this one, I guess, to replace that one, or maybe that one was broken and they bought another one. They told me, but I can't remember. They told me a lot of stuff, and These days, whatever I don't write down, a lot of times I don't remember. So just the beauty of, I don't know if it's getting old or just, I just deal with so many customers now. So there's just a lot of people I talk to and do things for. So hard to remember what everybody sells me, but okay. I may or may not come back again. We'll see in a second here, but I'm going to wash this stuff a little more, and then I will get the case in here, and then I'm going to bring that other, get that other unit up on the teardown bench here and steal what I need to from there after I clean the table. So I will put you on pause another hour or two, and it'll seem like a half a second. So hold on again. Alright guys, I'm back again. Found something very interesting. I kind of suspected this. Before I get into that, let's show you where I'm at on this rebuild. You know, not bad, but definitely, like I said, gonna have to spend some time in the ultrasonic. You know, these water-based washers that you got to use nowadays are basically good for getting oil and grease off of stuff. It doesn't do real well on carbon and sludge and things like that. Anyways, so we're getting there. Let's check out our extension housing. Hadn't been in here too much longer because honestly I had shut it off last time and I forgot to turn it back on. But yeah, you know, we're getting there. We're getting there. We're getting there. You know, it's probably going to take another hour, but that's cool. Alright. So here we go here. So this is the unit the customer built himself. And a couple things of notice here. So, okay, well, let's back up for a minute. I think I said this in the beginning. The unit locked up on them. Made a shift and it locked up. I don't remember if they said a 1-2 or a 2-3, but I kind of know why it did now. So, before we get into that, here's the filter. This filter, if you can tell, it's very porous. It's not going to catch much. They make better filters nowadays, or the later models had a better filter. You can still get them for this unit, thank God. This is a medium case Cruise O Matic, if I didn't say that originally. So we're definitely going to put a new filter there. So here's what I found. So if you look here, I'm going to rotate the output shaft. And you can see this planetary rotating, and that is rotating clockwise. If we're looking, you know, we're looking from the back of the transmission, and we're rotating this output shaft clockwise. I'm going to try to turn it counterclockwise, and you can see that I'm turning here. You can see the parking gear, but that is stationary at the center support. Okay. Now, here is, I took the planetary and the center support from the old one, and I don't know if you can, I need another hand, but in any case, what's happening here is the one-way clutch, there's a one-way clutch that allows us to rotate in one direction and not the other. It's been put in upside down, so the early units, you could put these in backwards. This one here, give me 1 second, I'm gonna put you down here. I'm gonna try to get this out. So later models were nice, you couldn't screw them up. But the early models you could, and you had to be real careful with this. I've never seen anybody do it. It's interesting. Not that, you know, not saying it's not super easy to do. It's extremely easy to do. See how this has a oh, I don't know, kind of like a sawtooth on it. So basically this is your cage assembly for your one-way clutch. If you were to go put this upside down, it's not going to go. You're not going to get it in. This is a roller clutch. The old ones had a sprag, and you could put them in upside down, and this was something that was easy to do on the torque converters too. And I think I did a video on this on the bolt together Cruise O Matic torque converter, where you could actually put that one-way clutch in upside down when you were building the converter. This is the same way. I said I didn't want to tear this down, but you know what? I'm halfway there. I'm gonna go ahead and tear the rest of this down. I'm running out of time. I got a unit I gotta ship, but alright, let me shut the hell up and get this done real quick. I want to show you that one-way clutch. And then maybe, I don't know if I'll do another video on this or not. I might do another video on this. Oh, the other thing too, so you can see here, this case originally would take a vacuum modulator, but they've got it capped off here, and we kind of suspected that might be part of the problem. But what we got here, this valve body is the early style that has the TV. So it didn't need a vacuum modulator. But you had to set the TV. You know, this wasn't just a kick down. It was it's a throttle control, just like an AOD or a 727 or a Chrysler or something of that nature. But this is actually that style of valve body, and probably would work in this case. You just plug the hole there, and obviously don't put a vacuum modulator because this one doesn't accept it. If you look here, let me show you the valve body in the newer unit that we're doing. Okay, you see this hump here that's added on? That is your throttle valve. There's a rod that comes from here and comes out and goes to the vacuum modulator here. Now, as you can see, this one does not have that extra valve body put on top there. So, but we're going to go with the newer style. The vacuum's a little bit easier to deal with. You don't have to worry about TV adjustment and stuff like that. These older cars, there's what they call a bell crank on the intake manifold, and that's part of your linkage for your TV control. And those typically, these old cars, they're all worn out, and you can't really get bushings or anything for it. What I've done in the past is when I used to build these units, I would ask them about the bell crank, and if the bell crank was all worn out, I would tell them, well, go ahead and send it to me, and I would weld up all the holes and re-drill them. And also on the rods would wear, so I would just kind of build that up with the TIG welder and make it all nice and tight, and basically just restore it. It's a pain, but the unit's not going to shift right if you don't do all this stuff. So, okay. So there is some nice things about the newer design, because you have the vacuum modulator, which is very easy to adjust, and then you have this cage, which is the same as like a Turbo 400, AOD, 4R70W. They all use this same one-way clutch. So what I'm guessing with this unit is it did not have first. It would have had manual first because the band would come on, but it probably just wanted a freewheeling first, I'm thinking. It might have had second gear, maybe, and third gear would have been lockup, like a trans brake, so you had kind of a, you want your trans brake, you just shift it in third. Pretty scary when you go down the road and that happens, but very easy mistake to do. It's the first time I've seen a unit come in like this, so I'm going to take this apart. I said I'd shut the hell up 20 minutes ago. Alright, let me take this apart real quick. I want to show you that one-way clutch, and then we'll call it a day on this video. So, I'll be back again. Alright guys, I have to go, but make this real quick. So, you see the difference in this one? It doesn't have the teeth on it. This is how it was in. It just needed to go like that. So something that simple will screw you over. You know, I always say this, a transmission is a very unforgiving animal. And something as simple as this will really make your life live in hell. You know, and with the world we live in now, if you built this for a customer and they went out and test drove it and it locked up in third, and especially if they got hurt or something, they might try to sue you if you're a big shop and they think you got a lot of money. You know, though, out here we got the hammer, you know, a lawyer, he calls himself the Hammer. I don't want to do a commercial for him, but he's a real shyster, and he's just kind of like what you think of when you think of a lawyer. So, you know, if you had done this for a customer and it locked up, you might have the Hammer giving you a call. So, hopefully he doesn't sue me for defamation. But, okay. Don't bother, Hammer. We don't have that much money. It's not worth your time. Just go chase some other ambulance. But anyways, that's it. I don't know if this had other problems or not, but this is certainly why it locked up, or at least one of the reasons. So, alright. I don't know if I'll do another video on this or not, you know, as it's, you know, when it gets together and all cleaned up, and you can see all that nice sludge there that I gotta get off, but case here is coming along. So we got more work to do on that, obviously, but it's an improvement. But alright guys, I appreciate you watching this. I hope you learned something. And you know, you guys that think I'm trying to discourage you from building your own unit, yeah, I kind of am, you know, because if you don't know what you're doing, this can be a problem for you. And you know, I'm really not trying to discourage you, but just understand what you're up against. And be really careful when you put it in. And, you know, like I said, if you're not sure of your work, and none of us are sure of our work, you know, that's why I have test equipment here. I make sure it works before it leaves. I remember the days before I did have test equipment. I never had a unit lock up on me, thank God, but I've had units not work and things like that, and hell, sometimes even testing them, they don't work. But not working, that's okay. Locking up, that's pretty scary. You want to try to avoid that. But if you are building your own unit, and you know, this unit was built by people that are mechanically inclined. I know these people. They're not dumb. They do damn good work. They restore cars and the whole 9 yards. But like I said, this is just such an unforgiving animal, and there's very little information on these antique units out there. And this is just what you got to watch out for when you get into this crap. So just, you know, be aware. That's all I'm telling you. Just be careful. Be safe out there, guys. Not trying to tell you you're too stupid to do it. I'm no genius, but you know, it's just experience. You just learn, and that's the difference, you know. So, alright guys, thanks for watching this nonsense, and if you're interested in the part 2 of this or whatever, as I get it cleaned up and get it together, and I'll get it on the dyno, I'm going to do a few mods to it to make it shift a little more firm. I talked about that with the customer. If you're interested in seeing that, let me know in the comments. I don't really have much time on this job to do much of a video on it, but I could definitely do another series on this. And if you're interested in it, just put it in the comments, and or whatever. Let me know something else you're interested on in the comments. That's fine too. I do try to read them and respond to them. Might take a little bit, but alright guys, see you on another one.